Welcome to episode 2 of the Dawghouse podcast. I'm your host, Roosevelt Jones. We have a special guest in here today, a two-time Horizon League Defensive Player of the Year. He went to back-to-back Final Fours with Butler University. He's now the assistant coach at Atlanta Hawks, and he was my former teammate, former road roommate, my guy, Ronald Nored.
In the Dawghouse. Work it, take a lot to be a dog. Oh, boy!
Well, man, hey, so how's with the off season now with you? What's the off season for like an assistant coach? Like, how does that look for you?
Yeah, in the NBA, it's not bad. The season ends, and hopefully you make the playoffs. It's been a while since I've been in the playoffs, so maybe this year. But the season ends, and there's a lot of downtime because we can't, require the players to be around. So some will choose to be around, but there's no requirement. So we get a little break from the season. And then we have, coming to the draft, go to Vegas for Summer League. And then you get another break before the season starts again. So now, end of August, we're preparing for in about a month. Training camp starts in about a month. So, having meetings and stuff, figuring out what we're going to do this season. And then starting in September, guys will start working their way back, and we'll start building some of our plans and things like that we want to do for the season leading up to training camp. So my family travels a lot too. So we go to the beach a couple times and get a lot of family time that we don't get during the season.
Nice. That's good. You get to have that time off. Yeah. So we're just going to review back your history from your time from going to Butler basically up to where you're at right now. So when you were playing in high school, obviously you were committed to a different school. So after the coach ended up taking a head coaching job somewhere else, what drew you to Butler after that?
Yeah, my family all lives in Indy. Mm-hmm. And so when I was young, we would come to Indy to visit my grandmother and some of my other my grandfather, some of my other family members. And my grandmother still to this day lives right around the corner from Butler. Mm-hmm. And so I knew of Butler, and, I had been in Hinkle when I was, probably like 10 years old, riding my bike around, Meridian Kessler area. And so I knew about Butler, and Butler had recruited me a little bit, but I was already committed in my mind going to Western Kentucky. So Brad called me. So I didn't even really think anything of it. And then when he left, I just started thinking about schools that, I could have go to a good school with great academics, but also compete at a high level in basketball. And, the summer of my senior year, Butler had made the tournament and had won the preseason NIT the year before. So I knew that, Butler was really competitive, and I knew I was going to get a good education. So I actually called Brad back. Mm-hmm. And he didn't pick up because it was against NCAA rules or something. Yeah. So he ended up calling me back, and then he kind of re-recruited me and ended up offering me.
That's funny, yeah. In a time where a lot of coaches might have been doing some other stuff, like Brad, he was the one dude that followed every single rule.
I'm like, bro, you could have picked up the phone call. Like, it was okay. But no, not at that time.
Yeah. So obviously, when you get there, your sophomore, junior year, you make it to back-to-back national championship games. Like, what are some moments that stand out from you during that run for you guys?
Yeah, some good, some bad. Starting that season, the 2010 season when we lost to Duke in the national championship game, we weren't very good in the non-conference. We went out to Anaheim, and up to that time, all the preseason or early season tournaments that Butler played in, Butler won. They dominated. And so we go out to Anaheim in this tournament, and we lose our first two games, end up playing for 7th place in this tournament. So that didn't start off great. And then, we keep going a little bit, and then we go down to UAB. And for me, an Alabama kid, going to school in Indy, and now we're coming back to my hometown, for a non-conference game at UAB, all my family, my friends, everybody's there, and we were better than UAB. So I thought we'd go down there and win the game, beat them easily. And I'm also in front of my friends, so I played a little out of character that game. I was taking like off the dribble threes, and I wasn't too happy about that. But we lost, and that was 2 days before Christmas. And so we knew we had the conference season coming up, and I think the story's been told a lot. But coming back from Christmas break after a couple of days, Brad had removed all the stuff off the walls that said, that talked about the Butler way, our pictures, all those things. And, we come back in the locker room and it looks crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And, he pretty much told us like we weren't living out our values, and it doesn't need to be on the wall if we're not going to live them out. And so we went on we won 18 games in a row in conference, won the conference tournament championship, and then won 5 games in a row in the tournament before we lost to Duke. So that whole kind of stretch of just the adversity that we had during that season was a big memory. And then, during the tournament, it was just, you play in the tournament. It's just a lot of fun to just be a part of it and, experience and go to the different cities, and you're doing the media and stuff like that. But, one story that stuck out was we were always, Avery Jukes, he played at Alabama, so he kind of came from the big time and transferred to Butler before transferring was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so we always gave him a hard time about kind of being big time. And when we're in Salt Lake City in the round of the Elite Eight, the round of the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, we're about to play the Elite Eight game, and we're getting on the elevator after shoot around. And the elevator's about to close, and Jukes, the big timer, hops on the elevator, and as soon as he hopped on right before the doors closed, the elevator, you could just feel it sink like that. We were stuck on the elevator for forever, right after shoot around before we were playing the Elite Eight game. Elevator's packed, it's super hot, and all Jukes' fault. That was a memorable moment. But there's like little stuff like that happened throughout the course of that year and even the next year where we weren't very good and had to win a lot of games before we won the championship. We probably wouldn't have made the tournament, in 2011 if we didn't win the conference championship. So, that was a rough year too, to start the year.
Mm-hmm. And then just going back to when you said Brad ripped off all the stuff that talked about the Butler way and the values, like, did you guys as a team meet together when he did that, or was practice different? Like what was the reaction like when you guys first saw that between the teammates?
Yeah, the reaction was shock. Like what are we doing? But we all felt it. I think we were 8-4 in non-conference. We felt that we weren't, because we returned every single player from my freshman year, the year before, and we were preseason top 10. A lot of people forget that. Like everybody's like, oh, Butler, Cinderella story, this and that. Like, I mean, you can say that or whatever because we were in a small conference, but we were number 10 in the country to start the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we knew that, we didn't win games like we should have, and we weren't being who we said we were going to be. And truthfully, I think I don't know when our first game of conference play was, in January or whatever, but those were the best practices I have ever been a part of in my life at any time in my life. The competitiveness, the attention to detail, the focus on the details, the camaraderie to get better. Everybody was moving in the same direction. Everybody knew, what we needed to do. And that's why we ended up, winning the way we did.
Mm-hmm. That's good. And then with you personally, you always had the reputation one of the toughest defenders and leaders in college basketball. Where did that mentality come from? Did you always have that growing up? Did it start in high school? Did you have to find a niche when you got to college? How did that start for you?
Yeah, I think, all of us that end up playing D1 or, offensively, we're better than most people in high school. There's definitely levels to it. So I wasn't as good as you or, a lot of guys, but, for me in my high school, I was the best player on my high school team. So I, not that I got to do whatever I wanted to, but I had the ball, I got to score. And when I started playing AAU, I wasn't the best player. Mm-hmm. And we had a high level AAU team. And so I played up to a couple tournaments I played up. When I was a sophomore, I played with the juniors and stuff like that. And so I definitely wasn't the best player, and I was younger than everyone else. And in that time, I started to realize, all right, if this isn't like high school, these guys are better than me. If I'm going to, have an impact on this team, I'm going to have to do something that's a little bit different. And for me, just being small and athletic, a lot of that was defense. And the other part of that was just being able to help the team, communicate with the team, get everybody on the same page. And so it kind of started there. And then it went to another level when I got to college, because now I'm playing with Matt Howard. I'm playing with Shelvin Mack. I'm playing with Gordon Hayward, Willie Veasley, who had, had a good career up to that point, Zach Hahn, Sean Van Zant, Avery Jukes, these guys that are really good players. And I wasn't that good. I was good enough to be on the court, but I wasn't skill-wise that good. And so, I figured I'll never forget this, actually. One of our first days at Butler, they gave us a sheet. At the top of the sheet, it said talent not required. And it had a list of all these different, traits that you could do to play in our program: hustle, communicate, things like that. And I looked at that and I was like, all right, I can do those. I may not be able to score as much as everybody else, but I can do those. And so I committed to that and said, you know what, this will make me different than everyone else. And fortunately, it worked out.
Yeah, that's good. Like, a lot of kids don't want to do that to this day, or back then. Like, they don't want to do those little details that require winning. And that's why you guys won, because we had players like you that want to take and do the little things that other people might not necessarily do.
Exactly. So, that's why we beat other teams, like other teams would, we would leave conference and everybody would be like, okay, this is, little Butler that's in the Horizon League. But, we were probably more connected than every other team. We were different, but we like you said, we did all those little things that it takes to win. And we ended up beating a lot of people because of it.
Yep. And then that followed right to the next question. Like, how did the Butler way, culture impact your career? And then how does it still impact you to this day?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, my freshman year, when Brad is up there talking about the Butler way and all these values and all this stuff, I'm like, I'm here to play basketball. What are we talking about? I'm sure you had a similar, type, are we talking about being passionate and servant oriented and stuff like that? I literally want to play. But then, as you get older and you start to see it and you connect it to the actual game and your teammates and stuff like that, you see that it's real. And I learned that pretty quickly, and it helped. We won, if we would have been talking about all the values and we lost, I would, probably been these values or whatever. But the people before us won, we won, you guys won after us, and so I know they're real. And, as a coach, it's been easy because I coach, and I'm still involved in basketball. And so, I've done my best to take those values that have really made me want to coach. It was because we had great coaches at Butler that taught us those values that were bigger than just basketball, that were about each other and connecting and loving the game and, being accountable and serving your teammates and being team first and having humility, all those little traits. Our coaches taught us that. It made me want to give that back to other people and teach other people how to, not just be great basketball players, but be great people in the community, connect with people. And so I've used those as kind of the foundation for who I am as I think about coaching, sharing different things with players. When I was a head coach, I used those values, to give to our team and set the foundation for what our team was going to be. So they've been very impactful in my life. And I'm really grateful, that I went to Butler and learned them.
Exactly. And then after you got done playing with your college career, did you know you was going to get right into coaching, or did you want to try and play afterwards? How did that go with you to transition right into coaching?
I think early in my year, I wanted to play. Early in my career, I wanted to play. But then I had my surgery after my sophomore year, after we lost to Duke. And just my body wasn't great. And so I knew if I played, I'd probably be somewhere overseas in 4th division somewhere, no treatment, missing home. But I really wanted to coach, man. I loved coaching. I coached when I was in high school. I coached a team. When I was playing at Butler, I coached AAU teams. And I also thought if I go overseas and play, I'm going to be delaying what I really want to do. So let's just coach right away. And I was fortunate to get a high school head coaching job at Brownsburg.
Yeah. And then just like you talked about, you coached at multiple levels, high school, G League, college, NBA. Like, what's the difference that you've noticed with how you connect with players at each stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, a lot of things really are the same. I think one thing I like to give is just, I like to just give everything I have to other people, love other people, serve other people. And I think across all, levels, players want that. Players appreciate that. Players want you to be honest with them. And so I try to do that as well to the best of my ability. People are just at the players are just at different stages in their lives. So high school, we may be, talking about navigating school a little bit more, talking about academics, obviously, and just being 14, 18 years old, where, in the G League, there's guys, you play in the G League, how it is. Like, guys are just trying to make it. It's the league where the money's not as good as other places around the world. Guys are just fighting for an opportunity in the NBA. And so those conversations may look a little bit different because of the battle and the daily grind and the ups and downs. And you're going to terrible – I shouldn't say terrible cities, but you're not going to the best, the NBA cities. The travel's terrible, and your bus breaks down in Erie, Pennsylvania, and can't get through the snow, and like you're navigating those things. In the NBA, where you're just in front of everybody, and everybody sees what you're doing all the time, and you have, you have so much money, and everybody wants something from you, and so those are different. And then if you don't perform, everybody sees it. So those are that's just a different conversation that you're having with those guys, while also trying to help everybody navigate life. So while everything's kind of the same, just where people are in their lives, and the money makes a difference in the NBA. It does. It just changes. It doesn't necessarily change the player, but it changes all the people around the player. And so to help them navigate that is a challenge.
Yeah, and then obviously in the NBA with Boston, you work with Coach Stevens. Did you learn like a difference from him as when you was a player versus when you was working with him in Boston? Was there a difference that you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually shocked with how humble he was. Like, I knew it as a player, but then I think it's easy. I'm not gonna say it's easy, but it's easier to be humble when you're a Horizon League coach. And then when you become the head coach of the Boston Celtics, it's easy to not be humble. I need this. I want this. Do this for me. And that happens in the NBA a lot. Brad, he was the opposite, where people were like, hey, we're going to carry your bags to your car. We're going to pull up your car to the plane. Because, you fly back in Boston at 2 a.m. in February. There's snow everywhere and it's cold. Coach, we'll pull your car to the plane. Brad's like, no, I can carry my own bags. I can walk to my car by myself. I don't need my car to be pulled up. I saw that right away. I'm like, man, all that humility stuff that he talks about that he gave us, it wasn't just, it's real.
He lives it.
Now, I will say on the other side, not that he breaks rules at all, but all the he would pick up my phone call, now when I was in Boston, like he didn't when he was, just started as a Butler coach. He relaxed a lot, just as a human being, just relaxed and just was more willing to just, kind of hang out with the bros and, stuff like that. And maybe he did that with the coaches, but as a player, you're like, come on, Brad, you got to loosen up a little bit.
And then just with you coaching the NBA, what's one thing fans probably wouldn't realize on the day-to-day life for you?
I think a lot of fans see the glitz and glamour of the NBA, because they come to the games, and the NBA, every arena produces a great, experience. You see social media and all that stuff. I think what people don't see is how hard it is, even for the players, and it's easy to say they make a lot of money and all that stuff. And they do, and they have everything, they could want. but it's a lot of work. You know, we just had our fourth kid at the end of the season, and navigating a season where you're barely home, where as a coach, I could literally work 24/7 if I wanted to. There's always work to do. We play every other day. You know, there's some days where I'm home where I just get to see my kids when I drop them off to school. And that might be it, you know, for a couple of days. And, you know, my wife is at home with all the kids navigating that. And you're tired because you land at 2 a.m. and then you have practice the next day, or you have a game the next day. That wears on you, you know. And as a coach, you're trying to be a good husband and spend time with your wife. You're trying to be a good father and spend time with your kids. You're trying to be a good coach as well and do great at your job. And so that's a lot. And it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of just mental strain.
Yeah.
So people obviously don't see that because they're not seeing us on a day-to-day basis. But, you know, when every other night you're flying back in and people say, oh, you got a nice plane. And we do. We have we stay in great hotels.
Yeah.
But, you know, it doesn't make getting in at 3 a.m. any easier.
Mm-hmm.
So
your family.
That's a part of the and the family part. Yeah. So that's the part of it that's difficult. And at the same time, I feel really grateful. Like I'm very blessed, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. And then obviously you've been around a lot of young stars in the NBA. Like, what separates those who stay long term and those who don't?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of people look at the stars and they, you know, young players especially, and they compare themselves to the stars. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be Steph. I want to be KD. I want to be Luka. And those guys stay around because they are the best in the world. Like they are hands down the best. And their talent, you know, what I would call God-given talent, has made them, you know, plus their work has made them the best.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, they started at a different level than everybody else because they were just given talent. There's a large portion of the NBA that's very, very talented. That may not be those guys, very, very talented, that it's important for them to continue to work really hard, but also be a great dude.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not a great person and, you know, a great teammate, there's a draft coming every year. So there are 60 guys that are coming in the next year every year, not to mention guys coming from overseas too, as free agents. And so if you don't continue to work, put in the time, get better, and, you know, you're not a great teammate and a great person around the facility and around the team, you know, it becomes more difficult to stay around. And so those guys that stay around for a long time, they do those well. And people want to be around them. They want to continue to fight for them. You know, and a lot of the best players in the world, they are that too. But, you know, at times they can kind of do what they want to do, and
yeah,
they're the best in the world. Like, you have to have them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th guy, we don't necessarily have to have you. We can find somebody else that may not even be as good as you, but they're going to be committed more to the team.
Yeah. And then just following up off of that, like maybe like you have a guy that's a young player that's not doing what he's supposed to do. Like, do you guys even have a conversation with them? Or do you just know, like, hey, we got somebody else, like you got a job to do. Like, we're not doing your job, you're out of here. How does that work?
Yeah, we definitely have the conversation. I think you have to have the conversation, give them a chance to grow, get better. You know, we don't want to give up right away on a guy. But over time, if it doesn't change, then, you know, this is also a business, you know, and there's business decisions that have to be made. But, you know, that's where I say, for me personally, you know, I think it's my job to be 100% real with players and guys that I work with. So if they're not doing something that, you know, that we expect of them, you know, I tell them. Now, I don't put them down, but I tell them in a way that's going to try to help them grow and also help them see maybe something that they're not seeing. Maybe they don't know they're not doing everything we want.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, you know, it's my job as a coach to help them. And then a conversation with the head coach, a conversation with the general manager. You know, there's a lot of layers to it to try to help these guys, you know, help the team and help them as human beings.
That's big time. And then obviously, like, you led as a point guard and a head coach. Like, what are some differences and similarities that you have from being on the court with the guys as a player on the court and then on the sideline trying to coach guys?
Yeah, I think seeing the game and understanding what's happening in the game, I think is something that has carried over from my playing career. All players should kind of understand what's happening in the game, but they don't. Everybody has a different role. But for me, my role, understanding the different situations, hey, what we need to do here, we see it all the time. That was one thing that we did. Like free throw comes, we need a huddle, and we got to make sure we talk and communicate about what we've been doing, what we need to do next. And so that translates right to the coaching. Being able to communicate with guys in the timeout, in the game, about what's going on. The other thing too is lifting people up, encouraging people. My job as a point guard was, to make sure everybody felt good. That was one thing I was taught when I was young. Like, if you're the point guard, everybody's got to feel good. You got to know, when Rose hasn't touched the ball a couple of times and he may feel like he wants the ball, so you got to get him the ball. Or you got to go over and have a conversation with so-and-so because they, this happened or that happened. And so that's translated right to coaching where, you have a pulse and a sense of what's happening with the team and each individual. You can feel what they're feeling and be able to step in and have empathy for them and maybe have a conversation with them that they need, so that they can continue to perform at a high level.
Mm-hmm. And then a couple more questions. Just looking back on everything with you at Butler, like how much pride you take of being part of like Butler's rise on that national stage?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm really grateful that I was a part of that. That's a major moment in my life. And to be able to do it with the people that we did it with made it even better. You know what I mean? It's great that, our team was able to be able to have the success, so that we could get guys like you, to come to Butler and, continue on that legacy. But it's definitely a point of pride in my life. It's something that I'm grateful that I got to experience, and it'll be something that I get referred to, or I'm a part of, or people people say to me, or I talk to my kids about, for the rest of my life.
Yes, love to hear it. And then last question, like, what would be like advice or like motivation that you would give to like current Butler players or future Butler players coming back in, trying to get them back to their winning ways?
That's a great question. I think I would say you have to really care about the place. Butler is unique, and Butler is not like everywhere else. And we all had other friends that went and played college basketball other places, and we all heard the stories about how their programs were run. And, a lot of times it was nothing like Butler, because we all cared about the place. You got to care about the school. You have to care about Hinkle Fieldhouse. It has to matter to you. You have to care about the people. The people have to matter. Butler, to win at Butler, it's not a place to say, we're just going to come out here and hoop. That's not Butler. Butler's a place where you buy into people, you buy into the Butler way, you buy into those values that make it special. And if you can buy into those and you have enough talent, you can win. And so I would encourage all the Butler players to really think deeply about that, and to spend time, focusing on that and caring about the place and caring about the people, and everything else will take care of itself.
Yes, sir. Couldn't have said it better. My guy, appreciate you for coming out to the Dawghouse, man. Always love, and we always stay connected, man.
Thank you, bro.
In the Dawghouse. Work it take a lot to be a dog.